Hey, what's going on, y'all? This is David the Sun, right east to others, coming back at you with another live video. And today I want to talk a little bit more about ethics, right? Because oftentimes when I talk about ethics, I get people who may have been students in these colleges about who may took philosophy courses in these colleges, right? So one of the things, and I told you, like my personality is that of a fidelity manager. So I'm always looking for the coherence in a conversation, in an ideology. I'm looking for the coherence. That's one of the reasons I became Muslim, right? Because Islam was a very coherent system, right? It didn't have the mysticism that I had experienced in other religions. And then so what that meant is that I could follow Islam through a linear process. Step 1, step 2, step 3, right? It's almost mathematical, if you will. And those are the things that I appreciate, because that brings order to life, right? So anyway, I've talked about, and I've posted these status, and I've had these conversations, and I brought up that black people are, and probably the majority of society, right? I mean, I would have to argue that to be the case. But black people in general have a very, we lack philosophical soundness. And so I posted a question the other day asking the question, if I wanted to, I didn't ask a question, I made a statement. If you wanted to destroy philosophy, the fastest way to do that is to fragment philosophy, meaning make everything philosophy. Make what I say philosophy, make what you say philosophy, make what everybody's doing philosophy. And then that way, if everything is philosophy, nothing is philosophy. But that is not what philosophy is, right? Philosophy is, if you will, it's a science. It's a science of human interaction and engagement. And so the point of philosophy is how do we determine the best way to live, right? And so there are serious methods that you have to use, right? You don't just get to think something and then call it philosophy. There's a methodology or a process to it, right? Just like there's a scientific process in science, right? There's a scientific process in science. Well, there's a methodological process in philosophy. And what these schools and universities do is they are trying to make money. They are not trying to teach you philosophy. And so what they do is they tell you, oh, we got the best philosophy course over here. And so you can see this throughout ideologies of any context, right? When you talk about religion, right? How many different sects of Islam are there? How many different denominations of Christianity are there? But Christ didn't teach all of those different denominations of Christianity, but all of those denominations think they are Christianity, right? All of those sects of Muslims think that they are Islam, whether you Shia, you Muslim, you Khidjarite, like whatever you are, right? People have all of these, they have a way of fragmenting ideologies from the original source, right? So for me, I always go back to the original source. That's what I'm looking for. And so I go back to the earliest philosophical writings, and that's my starting point. And so what you have with ethics is it's a process by which we determine our way from chaos to order. It is a process by which we determine our movement from chaos to order. And so ethics is not always it's not going to be necessarily morality, but how do we get to the highest moral position given our certain circumstances? And what you're going to find is people that think that morality is relative, right? That different tribes have different morals. Those people then have to think that ethics is ambiguous, right? That there is no real ethics. There's no ethical. There's no, how do I say? There's no process of ethics, right? That there's different type of ethics. But, so I'm reading a book right now. I don't have my other, I forget the author's name, but I'm reading a book right now. And the name of the book, I forget the author's name right now. But the name of the book is titled, There Is No Such Thing as Business Ethics, right? And what the author is trying to present to you is what I'm telling you. Either you're an ethical person or you are not. Either you are an ethical institution or you are not. There is no such thing as business ethics. That's the point he's trying to make. There is ethics in business. There is ethics in medicine. There is ethics in engineering. But there is no such thing as business ethics or medical ethics, right? Because if you categorize ethics to those categories, then what people can do is hustle you. They can hustle you and call it ethics in that context, right? So you can have a person who is the most immoral or amoral person telling you that they were ethical in their medical practices. But it's a hustle, yo. It's a hustle. That's what I'm trying to tell you, right? When people tell you, so Allah says in the Quran, to you be your way and to me be mine. But that's not a positive statement. Do you understand? That's not a positive statement. So Allah is not saying like, well, you can do Islam this way and you can do Islam that way. He's like, no, he's telling you, right? Like you got to read the previous scriptures. Like there are people who are doing it right and there are people who are doing it wrong. And it's not my job to make people do it right. So as such, however you do it, that's on you. That's correct. John C. Maxwell. Thank you, sis. I appreciate that. And so the point I'm making is if you're immoral or amoral, then ethics is ambiguous. But if you are a moral person, if you are a virtuous person, if you are striving for moral excellence, then you can't subscribe to the idea of ambiguous ethics, right? Because ethics means like the answer may not be right or wrong. It's moving us to morality. It's moving us to morality. So the dilemma that we have means we can't. So you hear people say you got to choose the lesser of two evils. I'm saying that's a ethical statement. That's an ethical statement. And so when you say you got to choose the lesser of two evils, it means you don't have no other option. So we're going to choose the option that moves us closer to the moral standing, closer to the moral position, right? That's the objective, to move us closer to the moral standing. It means that in the end of the conclusion, you may have to pick somebody that wasn't right, somebody that wasn't upstanding, somebody that wasn't virtuous, right? But you picked the person that was closer to the moral standard, or the conclusion that was closer to the moral standard, something that's moving us in the direction of virtue. It's moving us in the direction of virtue, right? And so that's how we discern moral dilemmas, meaning that's why I'm saying it's a hustle. It's a hustle. The person is trying to hustle you, right? They're trying to fragment the idea that allows them to move and navigate in a way, right? In the Quran, it's called the munafiq, the hypocrite, right? The person who they always got, the term munafiq in the Arabic language is like there's a game called whack-a-mole, right? When you're playing whack-a-mole, like you hit, the gopher or whatever comes out of one hole, you try to hit, boom, and go down and come out another hole, boom, go down and come out another hole. And that person is trying to define philosophy, virtue, ethics in that context to allow them to be able to move in and out different holes, right? That's what they're doing. But you need to understand that person is not philosophically sound, because they are not trying to move in the right direction. They are not trying to move in the right direction. They are trying to control the narrative in a degree to which the conclusion works best for them, not that the best conclusion is had. So I'll just tell you a story real quick that John C. Maxwell talked about in his book, There's No Such Thing as Business Ethics. There was a coach of a football team. The team was 10-0. They were going to play the championship. But prior to the season, the coach had told the team, if they get into any incidents that described that involved alcohol or drugs, that they would be immediately suspended from the team. So now they're 10-0. They were at a hotel, and 16 of the players got arrested at a hotel where drugs and alcohol were involved. So now they're at the championship game, and the coach has a decision to make, right? And he made the ethical decision. The decision he made may not have been the best decision, but it was the right decision. So he suspended the 16 players, which means the bench players had to start. And they got smashed 62-0. 62-0. And so some people might have said, like, you damn fool. Like, you lost us the championship. Like, no. The goal is not always to win, right? You have to be concerned to some degree about the integrity of the game, right? And so you don't want to win at the cost. What Jesus says in the Bible, what good does it do a man to gain the world if he loses his soul? And that's what the coach was trying to do, right? Move these young men not from high school football players to professional football players, but from morally ambiguous men to virtuous men. And as such, what that means is that he had to make a tough decision that was going to cause them to lose the game. And they lost the game and they lost the championship, but make them better men. And sometimes we're not concerned about, we're not concerned about the integrity of our men, about the virtue of our men, or women for that matter. And then I'm gonna divest just a little bit to talk about. I'll do another video for that. But I hope I made the point clear. Ethics is not ambiguous. There are not many forms of ethics. There may even be many studies of ethics. But ethics is a process, just like the scientific method is a process, right? And if anybody come to you and say there are many different types of scientific process, just whatever you can do in the most respectful manner you can, just shut down that conversation, right? That, again, you're talking about a situation where a person is trying to hustle you. So I'll give you one example and then I'll close this out. Oftentimes I hear people say 96% of scientists agree in global warming. Like, what? 96% of scientists agree in global warming. And so the question I always ask is, when does science become about consensus? Right? When did science become about consensus? And if you let people like that tell you that that's science, then we will compromise the integrity of science, which will compromise the integrity of our lives. And I'm saying that in the sense that E = MC squared. Like, let me put it this way. The people who taught Albert Einstein thought Albert Einstein was a bumbling idiot. The people who taught Albert Einstein thought that Albert Einstein was a bumbling idiot. How'd that turn out? So if the consensus of professors thought that he was a fool, who's the fool now? Right? The same with Galileo, right? The church had a position that the earth was the center of the universe. Galileo said no. Galileo died on house arrest. Who was right? Was it the consensus of the church or Galileo? Science is not about a consensus, and ethics is not about a personal choice or a personal field of study, it's not. It's about the process of moving us from chaos to order.